Hello, my name's Roger Coghill. I'm a biologist and my degrees are from Cambridge University, where I was at Emmanuel College and a senior exhibitioner there, and subsequently at the University of Wales I gained a master's in environmental management. And for 30 years I've had my own laboratory in South Wales researching the effects of electricity and magnetism on organic life and organic cells, including you and me. And during the course of that time, I made a special study of medication and intervention, as they call it in medical circles, for the treatment of viruses. And that is the use of ultraviolet lamps to irradiate blood, irradiate a small part of the blood of the patient, and then reintroduce it into the patient's body. And the result of that is that the radiation doesn't stop immediately you turn off the lamp. It continues to vibrate at an enormously high frequency until gradually it finishes. And that's why I suppose microwave oven manufacturers advise users to leave the heated food aside for a few minutes to get rid of that extra vibrational radiation. Anyway, this treatment was applied in 1928 by a physician called Emmett Knott, who was faced with a virtually moribund patient and with septicemia. And in the years that followed, Miley, a colleague of Knott, and he put together and treated hundreds, if not thousands, of patients. And not in even one occasion was there any adverse effect ever observed. So the kinds of illnesses which these scientists looked at, investigated, were mainly bacterial, but also viral. And they found that this procedure could eliminate herpes virus. It's a very difficult virus, poliomyelitis virus, viral pneumonia, and so on. So it occurred to me that resurrecting this somewhat outdated and forgotten technique might also have pertinence to the coronavirus problem. And that really now, with lessening cases being reported and the curve of infection beginning to turn down, nevertheless has had phenomenal impacts on our social and economic life all around the world. So it would be a good thing to discover a new way of treating patients who had contracted this infection. Now, effectively, a vaccine is a prophylactic. You take it so that you don't get the disorder. But the chances of finding a vaccine for a fast mutating coronavirus are very slim, to be honest. We've never found a proper vaccine for influenza or even the common cold. And so the chances of us finding one for coronavirus are not very good, and clearly months, if not years away, if at all. What's the alternative? We can't sit in lockdown for the rest of our lives. But if we could find a way of treating effectively this virus, it would certainly change the picture because it would allow a much more relaxed social and economic activity than we have at the moment. And that's what I want to suggest. I think that we should take this trial of coronavirus. It has never been done. Other trials of viruses have been successful. Other studies have been reported. It's not just the whim of a few doctors. This has been reported in the scientific peer-reviewed literature. So what I propose is that we conduct a small trial on existing virus patients and have a suitable matched set of controls, that we make the study what we call double blind, so that neither the doctors nor the patients nor anybody else knows who the treated and who the controls are. So it's a mock-up in one case and the real thing in another. And we make it randomized so that the patients are discovered in a random manner, and that we analyze the results. And it's my suspicion, and it can only be a hypothesis based on what evidence I've seen in the literature and the clinical evidence to boot, that the COVID patients who receive this treatment, which doesn't take more than about 20 minutes, it's very simple to do it. It's not much more complicated than when people give a blood donation. And it can be done without having to use an ICU or a clean room, and it can be done by any competent phlebotomist, nurse, who's used to taking blood and injecting people with medication. So the cost is not going to be very high, but the results could lead to a new form of medicine, really. And I'm just puzzled why, with the failing ability of antibiotics to work and the difficulties of making an effective vaccine. Okay, they make vaccines and they make a lot of money from that, but those vaccines can often be outdated by the time they're applied. And given that background, this new approach to medicine and medical treatment seems appropriate and timely. There's one big snag. You can't patent ultraviolet radiation. And so, not many companies, if any, can make much money out of it. Except, I suppose, they could develop specific machines for the purpose. In fact, I believe that there are some machines already in the marketplace which could do that job of UV radiation, blood radiation, quite successfully. Well, that's what I want to say. And the only other thing I would say is that for whatever reason, and there may be some, the media have completely ignored this modality. And at first that puzzled me, because it's quite well known on YouTube. There are over 100 YouTube videos talking about this now, and more every day. But not a squeak on the media. So I'm wondering if it might not be a politic thing, given that the media of television and radio, which is our main media, they transmit their message through radiation through the atmosphere, and it may not be in their interest to promote or talk about even a protocol which uses radiation to treat people, because they don't want to admit that there might be biological effects from this kind of approach. Well, thanks very much for listening, and congratulations. I have done a much more scientific study, and you'll be happy to get that if you wish from me. If you simply send me your email address, I will send it to you, because I don't want to put it up on YouTube. Now you might say, well, why don't you just put it up on YouTube? The answer is, I notice with some dismay that some of the YouTube videos about UV blood irradiation have been taken down by YouTube, and I'm not happy that that risk is one which I would myself endure if I put my own study into the public domain in that way. But if you want to send me your email address, I will send it to you. And my email address is simply roger@cogreslab. I'll spell that C-O-G for Coghill, R-E-S for research, L-A-B for laboratories, and then .co.uk. Thank you. Bye now.